I stand in my childhood home, a stranger after 8 years of silence. The gold pendant at my throat quivers faintly as I breathe in the scent of pine needles and roasted turkey, a fragrance that once meant comfort and now feels like something staged. The Christmas lights glow warmly against garlands draped along the staircase. The china cabinet gleams exactly as it did when I was a girl, polished to perfection. On the mantel, framed photographs line up in proud symmetry. Merrick in his graduation gown, Clayton shaking hands at some industry banquet, both of them flanking father in nearly every captured milestone. My absence from those frames feels louder than any argument ever could. The dining table stretches long and immaculate beneath its white linen cloth, set with Limoges china and crystal glasses that catch the chandelier's light. It looks less like a place for celebration and more like a negotiation chamber. I take my seat quietly, aware of the unspoken hierarchy that has always arranged itself around this table. It's time we discussed the future of more manufacturing, father declares, lifting his glass. His voice carries that familiar resonance of command, the same tone that once dictated curfews, expectations, and my supposed limitations. My brothers sit straighter, anticipation flickering across their faces. Mother smooths invisible wrinkles from her napkin, gaze lowered. She already knows. Merrick will assume the role of CEO. Clayton will serve as COO. Ownership will transfer equally between them. The Moore legacy will continue through my sons. Silence drapes itself over the room. I feel glances brush against me before retreating quickly, like hands touching something fragile or volatile. My fingers tighten around my water glass, condensation slick against my skin. "And Arletta?" Mother asks softly, her voice barely stronger than the clink of silverware. Father clears his throat. Arletta has chosen her own direction. He does not look at me. The tech industry, playing with gadgets. The words are delivered as fact, as dismissal, as verdict. 8 years ago, I would have lowered my eyes. I would have accepted that summary of my life. Tonight, something inside me remains steady. Understood, I reply evenly. He nods, mistaking composure for surrender. My mind drifts to another evening in this room, the day I graduated at the top of my class in computer science. I had stood right here, diploma trembling in my hands, describing my idea for a startup built on neural networks that could transform medical diagnostics. I remember Father's chuckle, indulgent and dismissive. "Sweetheart, that's just tinkering with gadgets. Leave real business to your brothers." Merrick and Clayton had nodded, as if their business degrees carried more weight than my MIT education. Mother had patted my hand gently and suggested I focus on finding a successful husband instead. I left that night with more resolve than support. I filled out loan applications until dawn, balanced 3 jobs, survived on exhaustion and stubbornness. I kept going when investors said no, when rent was overdue, when doubt pressed like a physical weight against my chest. Now Father resumes speaking as if nothing significant has occurred. "We'll draft the paperwork after the holidays," he says. Then, almost casually, "Of course, Arletta, you could still marry someone accomplished. That's always an option." The table goes silent again. Clayton shifts. Mother studies her plate as though the porcelain might crack under scrutiny. I continue eating deliberately. The tremor leaves my hand. I place my fork down with quiet precision. "Thank you for clarifying where I stand," I say, meeting his eyes without flinching. He blinks, unused to resistance. "Now, Arletta—" "No, please," I interrupt gently. "You've made your position clear. I appreciate the honesty." My brothers remain quiet. Their silence feels heavier than any insult. Father moves on, outlining transition plans for the company I once helped modernize during summers home from college. The company whose inefficiencies I could still solve in a quarter. The company that will never carry my name. I take another sip of water and watch my distorted reflection in the crystal glass. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tonight, I let them believe they still hold the upper hand. Dessert is half finished when 15-year-old Nico gasps. His tablet nearly slips from his hands as he stares at the screen. "Holy," he stops himself, glancing at his grandmother. "Aunt Arletta, you're on the Forbes list." Time freezes. Merrick's fork clatters. Clayton's wineglass stalls midair. Mother presses a hand to her throat. "Let me see," Father demands. Nico rotates the screen toward all of us instead. My photograph fills the display. Beside it, a number that seems to detonate in the center of the table. $2.8 billion. Neuromedics acquired for $4.5 billion, Father reads, voice hollow. Revolutionary neural network technology expected to transform neurological diagnostics worldwide. 8 years distilled into headlines. "Well," Mother says faintly, "this is Unexpected. "We need to talk," Father says, pushing back his chair. "Living room. Now." I follow with my wine glass in hand. The living room walls display decades of curated pride. Graduations, weddings, hunting trips, awards. My presence in those memories has always been peripheral or absent entirely. Father remains standing as I sit on the sofa. The old choreography of dominance and submission plays out automatically. "How long were you planning to keep this from us?" he asks, accusation sharpening his tone. "I wasn't hiding it," I reply calmly. "The acquisition was announced 3 months ago." "You could have called," Mother says. "Like you called me?" The question lands heavier than intended. Father's jaw tightens. "I didn't think you'd truly succeed with that computer nonsense. I was trying to protect you from disappointment." Merritt clears his throat from the doorway. "She asked me for seed money back then," he admits quietly. I turned her down. Dad said not to encourage unrealistic ideas. The memory resurfaces, how desperately I needed that small loan. "What about my letters?" I ask Mother. "I wrote every Christmas for 3 years." She lowers her eyes. "Gordon thought it best not to respond until you came to your senses." I intercepted them. "I'm sorry." The betrayal cuts sharper than I expect. Father waves a dismissive hand. "These tech valuations are inflated. Smoke and mirrors. It'll be revised down." "Dad's right," Clayton adds. Tech bubbles burst. Merrick's tone shifts abruptly. "We always knew you were capable, Arletta. Remember when I helped you with computer class? You copied my homework," I remind him. "We both got detention." Mother smiles nervously. "We've always been proud of you." Father nods. "You get your ambition from me." Their attempt to retroactively authorize success is almost surreal. For a fleeting second, I feel the old longing stir. The child who wanted their approval more than achievement. Accepting their rewritten history would be so easy. My phone vibrates. Miss Dobbins, my high school computer science teacher, has text. "I always knew you'd change the world. So proud of the girl who stayed after school to learn Python when no one else cared." Her words are simple, honest. No revision required. The next morning, I overhear Father in his study. The door stands partly open. "Yes, Charles, she finally made it. All that guidance I gave her about persistence paid off. I told her to think bigger." His laughter scrapes against my nerves. My phone fills with messages, requests for investments, loans, partnerships. Relatives who haven't spoken to me in years suddenly rediscover my number. A kitchen helper appears. "The Nebraska Chronicle is calling. They'd like to interview your parents about raising a billionaire." "Tell them we're unavailable," I reply. The word "we" tastes wrong. Later, in my childhood bedroom, I stare at the glow-in-the-dark stars still clinging to the ceiling. I remember balancing 3 jobs at MIT after Father refused tuition support. I remember the exhaustion, the rejections, the night our first investor withdrew. I remember nearly quitting until an email arrived from a father in Detroit, whose daughter my algorithm had helped diagnose correctly after specialists failed her. "You gave my daughter her life back. I still carry that email in my wallet." A knock interrupts me. "Aunt Arletta?" Lacey stands in the doorway with her laptop. "Can you help me with my coding project? I want to be like you." Warmth spreads through me. "Come here," I say, patting the bed. "Let's take a look." Later, I stand outside Father's office. The scent of leather and old cologne lingers. Agricultural models line the shelves, relics of an industry that once defined everything. He looks smaller behind the desk. "I've been thinking," he says when I enter. "I just wanted to protect you. The startup world is brutal. Most fail. I didn't want you hurt." Clarity settles inside me, calm and unshakable. "You weren't protecting me," I say, voice steady. "You were silencing me." His eyes widen slightly. "Every time I shared an idea, you called it playing with gadgets. When I graduated with honors, you suggested I find a husband instead of building a company." My hands remain steady, my voice calm despite the fire in my chest. "That wasn't protection. That was control. Now wait a minute. I never needed your permission to succeed, Dad. The realization fills me with unexpected lightness. I needed it to feel worthy of success. There's a difference." He stares at me, mouth partially open, no words emerging. My mind drifts to Miss Dobbins, my high school computer science teacher, the after-school hours she spent helping me apply for scholarships behind my father's back. "Your mind is exceptional, Arletta," she told me. "Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." While my family saw limitations, others saw potential. The contrast couldn't be clearer now as I stand taller in my father's office than I ever had before. "There's a family dinner tomorrow," I say, moving toward the door. "I think it's time everyone heard the real story." Back in my room, I open my laptop, reviewing the audio recordings of my father's contradictory statements from the past 2 days. The lies about his support, the revisionist history. Tomorrow will change everything. I save the files to a folder labeled Truth and close my computer. Tomorrow night, from downstairs, I hear my father's voice calling everyone to the living room. While we gather, I'd like to make a toast, he announces as I descend the stairs, to my successful daughter who followed my advice. The crystal glasses clink. I smile, saying nothing. Yet I raise my glass, mirroring my father's gesture from the night before. The room falls silent. My family watches with expressions ranging from curiosity to unease. To family, I begin, my voice steady, and to truth. As I lock eyes with each person around the table as I speak, a deliberate cadence to my words. 8 years ago, I stood in this dining room with my MIT diploma, the 4th of June, 2017. I explained my neural network concept for medical diagnostics. Father shifts in his chair. I continue without pausing. After being told to find a good husband instead of pursuing my gadget playing, I applied for 23 loans, all rejected. I looked directly at Merrick, including the one I asked you to co-sign on the 15th of July. Mother's eyes widen. She hadn't known this detail. I worked 3 jobs simultaneously, the Starbucks on Cooper Avenue from 5 to noon, tech support at Midwest Data from 1 to 6, coding freelance until 2 in the morning. I take a sip of water. For 18 months straight, November 2019, Dr. Chen became my first investor. By 2022, our platform had diagnosed early-stage neurological conditions in over 4,000 patients. Aunt Patricia whispers something to Uncle Ray. I maintain my rhythm. Last month, Neuromedicines was acquired for $4.5 billion. I set my glass down with a soft click against the table. Not because I married well, not because I got lucky, because I refused to accept the limitations placed on me in this room. Father clears his throat, face flushed. Now, Arletta, I always believed in you, in my own way. Really? I ask, one eyebrow raised. You were just so young, he continues, voice strained. A woman in tech. I was protecting you from disappointment. Dad explicitly forbade us from helping you, Merrick blurts out, surprising even himself. He glances at our father, then back at me. He said if we gave you money or connections, we'd be cut from the will. Clayton's fork drops against his plate. Merrick, what are you doing? Is that true? Mother turns to father, color draining from her face. I intercepted your letters because he told me to, she admits, looking at me with tears forming. He said letting you fail would teach you to appreciate family more. Aunt Patricia stands abruptly. Gordon, you told us our letter misused your help. The room erupts in cross-accusations, years of carefully maintained family mythology crumpling in real time. When Clayton suggests we simply move forward and forget the past, I hesitate. Should I accept this superficial peace for the sake of family harmony, or insist on genuine acknowledgement of the truth before any reconciliation could begin? My phone buzzes. Connor's name appears on the screen. My boyfriend of 3 years before I left Nebraska. The one who said my dreams were cute, but suggested I focused on realistic goals. The text reads, saw you in Forbes, always knew you had potential. Coffee when you're in town. I show the message to my cousin Trish beside me, who rolls her eyes. I type back, thanks, but I prefer to leave the past in the past. I press send while everyone watches. A small act, but the message lands. Several family members nod with newfound respect. You had Thanksgiving dinner with the governor last month, Aunt Patricia says, breaking the awkward silence. Your cousin Joanne saw the pictures. The governor's daughter uses our platform at her hospital, I explain. She credits it with saving her father's life after detecting early signs of a stroke. Father stares at his hands. When he looks up, his eyes are wet. I was wrong about you, he says, voice breaking on the final word. The admission hangs in the air. Not an apology, but the closest thing to one I've ever heard from him. Around the table, expressions change. Aunt Patricia squeezes my shoulder as she passes to refill her coffee. Uncle Ray asks thoughtful questions about my company. Cousins who barely acknowledged me yesterday now lean in when I speak. Maybe, I suggest, setting down my napkin, we should have a proper family meeting to discuss how we move forward from here. Father nods slowly. I think that would be appropriate. For the first time in 8 years, we might actually listen to each other. 2 weeks after the dinner confrontation, one Wednesday afternoon, Father leans forward across his mahogany desk, the same desk where he'd signed countless documents excluding me from the family legacy. The afternoon light catches the silver in his hair as he slides a folder toward me with the careful precision of a chess player. We've been thinking, he says, voice unnaturally bright. More manufacturing should reflect all the more children. I open the folder. Inside lies a mock-up of new company letterhead with more and daughter manufacturing emblazoned across the top in glossy navy text. My stomach tightens. We've already printed promotional materials, Merrick adds, pointing to a stack of brochures on the corner of the desk. The announcement goes out next week. Clayton clears his throat. The board thinks your profile could attract new investors. He shuffles his feet. The company could use a cash infusion. You've done well for yourself, Father says, his voice softening into the tone he once used when asking me to be reasonable about giving up my MIT scholarship. Imagine what your expertise and resources could do for the family business. I run my finger over the letterhead, feeling the raised text beneath my fingertip. After all these years of dismissal, they finally found a use for me, my money, my reputation, my success they had no part in building. you said. I said I appreciated the thought, which I do. I stand, smoothing my skirt. It's a revealing one. The grandfather clock in the corner ticks heavily into the silence. Mother shifts in her chair by the window, her eyes darting between father and me like a trapped bird. I've been doing some thinking too, I continue, about legacy and impact. I open my laptop, turning the screen toward them. The web page displays a professionally designed site with the More Innovation Fund at the top, underneath the banner of women in hard hats, lab coats, and business attire. What is this? Father leans forward, squinting. I'm creating a $10 million endowment for women in STEM and manufacturing, focusing specifically on Nebraska entrepreneurs. I scroll down to show the application portal. We're already accepting submissions for our first round of grants. Clayton's mouth opens and closes without sound. Merrick grips the edge of the desk. $10 million? Mother whispers. To start, I close the laptop. The companies these women build will change the landscape of American manufacturing. They'll create jobs, innovations, and entirely new markets. But the family business, Father begins, will remain exactly what it's always been. I meet his gaze steadily. Your legacy. I don't need your legacy, Father. I've built my own. The muscle in his jaw twitches, a familiar sign of mounting frustration. For the first time, I don't feel the automatic urge to placate him. Let's discuss this over dinner, Mother suggests, her voice thin with tension. We migrate to the dining room, that battlefield where Father first announced my disinheritance. The table stretches between us, polished to a high gleam that reflects the chandelier light. Crystal glasses catch and scatter rainbows across the tablecloth. Father carves the roast with short, forceful strokes. This fund of yours, he says finally, it's a nice charity project, but real business requires experience. Asas, the fund isn't charity, I correct him. It's investment. And speaking of experience, I turn toward Mother, who startles slightly under the unexpected attention. I'd like you to join the board of directors, Mom. The carving knife freezes mid-slice. Mother's water glass stops halfway to her lips. Lorraine doesn't know the first thing about business, Father sputters. She's never worked a day. She raised 3 children while maintaining this house and supporting your career, I counter. She managed family finances, organized charitable events, and built community connections that benefited more manufacturing for decades. Mother sets her glass down carefully. Gordon always handled the important decisions, she says softly. And how has that worked for you? I ask her directly. A strange expression crosses her face, something between fear and curiosity. The board meets quarterly, I continue. First meeting is in February. You'd have a vote on all funding decisions. She can't possibly, Father begins. I accept, Mother says. The words fall into the room like stones into still water. Father's fork clatters against his plate. Lorraine, he says, voice low with warning. Mother straightens in her chair. It's time I had a voice too, Gordon. The remainder of dinner passes in weighted silence. Merrick studies his plate while Clayton attempts small talk that dies quickly. Mother eats with surprising appetite, her movements more decisive than I've seen in years. Weeks later, rumors reach me through business channels. Father has started seeing Dr. Hanover, a therapist specializing in controlling behavior. Clayton mentions it casually during our monthly video call, as if discussing the people. Change is possible, my brother says, not quite meeting my eyes. At least, that's what Dad's learning. I think of Mother preparing for her first board meeting, calling me with questions about Robert's Rules of Order. I think of the first grant recipient, a woman developing biodegradable packaging materials, crying when we called with the news. The day before I leave San Francisco for a tech conference in Boston, Father calls. His voice sounds different, less certain, more human. Arletta, he says, my name awkward in his mouth after years of minimal use. Will you come back next Christmas? The question hangs between us, fragile and loaded with unspoken history. I look at the calendar on my office wall, already marked with next year's plans. I'll think about it, I tell him. And for the first time, I mean it. A year later, during Christmas time, I pull the lucid air into the familiar driveway, no longer hiding who I've become. Through the windshield, I see them gathered on the porch, not the stiff, formal reception of years past, but genuine smiles, open arms. My mother waves enthusiastically, a gesture that would have seemed impossibly exuberant just a year ago. Aunt Arletta, Lacey races down the steps, her tablet clutched to her chest. At 15, she's all gangly limbs and fierce intelligence. I need to show you something. Inside, the house feels different. The same furniture, the same Christmas decorations, but the air has shifted, no longer charged with unspoken resentments. It breathes more freely now. I wrote this program myself, Lacey whispers, pulling me into a corner. Her Python code fills the screen, clumsy in places, brilliant in others. Mom said computers are for boys, But I showed her your TED Talk about neural networks. I squeeze her shoulder. Keep going. The world needs your mind. My brothers greet me with handshakes that turn into awkward hugs. Clayton's eyes hold an apology still working its way to their lips. Merrick mentions a manufacturing problem his team can't solve, asking my opinion without the defensive edge that once coded his words. When dinner is served, I take my place at the table, the same table where everything shattered and began to rebuild. Father stands at the head carving the turkey with steady hands. His hair has more silver now, his posture less rigid. Before we eat, he says, lifting his glass, I want to toast my children, each successful in their own way. His eyes meet mine directly, no longer sliding past. I'm proud of all of you. A year ago, these words would have been everything, validation I'd craved like oxygen. Now I accept them with a smile, feeling their warmth without needing their heat to survive. The neural interface your company developed for stroke patients, Mother mentions between bites. The Times called it revolutionary. I explain the technology without downplaying its importance or my role in its creation. No more shrinking to fit someone else's idea of my place. My voice carries the authority of someone who knows her worth. The doorbell chimes, and I rise. That's my guest. Miss Dobbins enters with a bottle of wine and a lifetime of believing in students when no one else would. Her gray hair is styled in a sleek bob now, her posture still teacher straight at 70. You remember Miss Dobbins, I say, though everyone does. She taught 3 generations of Moors, surviving my father's budget cuts when he chaired the school board. Later, when glasses are refilled, I stand. To those who see our potential when we can't see it ourselves. Miss Dobbins blinks rapidly, her glasses fogging slightly. My father nods, something humble in the gesture. Spring sunshine floods my San Francisco office 6 months later as I adjust my camera. 30 teenage girls from rural Nebraska stare back from my monitor, their faces eager during our virtual coding workshop. Never let anyone tell you what you can't build, I tell them, spotting Lacey in the corner of my screen. She's already helping the girl beside her debug her code. Nico, my brother's son, pokes his head into my office. The investors are here on Tarletta. His summer internship has already taught him more than 4 years of business school taught my brothers. On my desk sits a new family portrait from Easter. My mother stands tall, confidence radiating from her posture. The more innovation fund-born position suits her. Father stands beside me, not above me, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. As I look at our new family portrait, I wonder which matters more in the end, being right about the past or being open to a different future. Would you choose to hold on to the satisfaction of vindication or embrace the possibility of genuine change, even if it means letting go of justified resentment?